My guest on the podcast today is oil painter and a personal friend of mine, Trisha Adams. Welcome to the podcast, Trisha.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Oh, it's great to have you. I really wanted to have you on the podcast because I admire you as an artist, but also as a businesswoman. Later in the podcast, we'll discuss the business side of art making. But for now, let's start from the beginning of your career. You share on your website that your painting journey began when you were 44. I think this fact about you will inspire many others who are searching for new beginnings in their lives. Can you explain the spark that led you to discover painting?
Well, I don't know what made me want to do it, but it did kind of come over like a fever, and I was obsessed.
That's beautiful.
I had been a graphic designer for a very long time, and people think that's artistic. It's visual, but you're not really making art.
Yeah.
You're working on a computer, and
Yeah.
maybe I'm not anymore, but I was pretty good on it back then. And
I have the
I
same
used to work at a
experience. Yeah.
computer store,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. And but after a while, it stopped feeling right because the demands of the deadlines were really really hard. Like
Yeah.
you stay up all night and you miss your kids' birthday parties.
Yes.
It's like it didn't seem worth it.
Yeah. When I was working as a
So
designer, I was working 60-hour weeks. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was preaching, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was like, that's it. I was working, I had my own business. I sold it. I worked at a color printing company in the pre-press. Anyway, I quit and we moved to the country and I started homeschooling our two boys, and it was great. It was just like this renaissance. That's how I think of it for myself, where I had a lot of different interests, like making cheese and wine and meat and soap, and I had goats and chickens, and I call it my homesteading phase. But what happened was kids grow up. Mm-hmm. And so then they didn't need to be homeschooled, and I was like, oh, now I gotta do something else.
Yeah.
And I had made some artwork to fill a picture frame. It's like, I gotta do something with this frame. I'll make something that fits it. Mm-hmm. And it was a collage. But people were like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. And I put it in an art show and it sold.
Wow.
I know. Who would have guessed?
What a bang. What a way to start.
Yeah. That probably makes people hate me already.
But, no.
So that, my husband was like, hey, why don't you work for the library? It's right there, and you get a retirement, and it's good hours, and you like books, and
yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not it when I go to sleep, I'm not shelving books.
Yeah.
I'm painting.
Yeah.
Like, because it had moved along to I switched over to painting. And I was just like, I'm just painting all night long. And I have to do it.
Wow.
And so, it took a long time to talk people into it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, well, that's a hobby. What are you going to do for a job?
Yeah. Well, you obviously got really good very quickly. So what were you doing there to help with your skill set to make that transition?
You've probably heard that you need 10,000 hours to be, an expert at something.
Yeah.
And
of conscious effort, right? Like, it's not like just 10,000 hours. Like, you have to be consciously working to improve, right?
Well, that's probably true, because I think there are people that have done 10,000 hours and still aren't an expert. But
yeah.
And actually, I'm not expert either, to be honest. Yeah. But so I said, I need to work. I need to paint every day. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. Every day I'm going to paint. Saturday, Sunday, I don't care.
Wow.
And so then I was like, well, where's this time going to come from?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, get rid of the soap making, get rid of the cheese making, get rid of the wine making, get rid of the goats, get rid of the chickens. Like, I just cleared my deck. Then the next thing I thought was, well, I'm starting kind of late, and I don't have time to just piddle around and just, discover the wheel by myself.
Right.
Somebody already knows about, this stuff, and I'm going to learn from them.
Yeah.
So I actually started working at an art school part-time.
Oh,
Yeah, in Leesburg.
at Art Square? Is that where you were working at?
It was before it was called Art Square. It was called Loudon Academy of the Arts.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that, Trisha. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I worked there part-time. I eventually ended up being the director for a short while, just because.
How did I never know this about you? That's
Well,
awesome.
Um,
Look at you.
so
Wow.
I just threw myself into every single thing. Like, I got a studio there.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful because they had art openings every month. Gallery 222 did.
Yeah.
And the people that came to the openings we were right off of the gallery. They'd come in and they'd look at the art, and you get an idea of what people like and
Yeah.
what they say about it. You get a lot of feedback.
Yeah. It was a great location.
Yeah. And in a public space.
Yeah.
And then I guess another thing that I think is helpful for getting better is, all right, you end up with a pile of paintings that don't work, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't ever go back to them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But, I would, 6 months later, I'd pull it out and say, do I know now? Because, you're learning the whole time.
Wow. So you were going back to the lesson, basically. Like, what was this painting trying to teach you? And did you solve it?
Or I know something's wrong with it. What is it?
Mm-hmm,
What is
mm-hmm.
it? Do I know? And I would go back and I'd try things. Sometimes they'd work. I go, oh, well, now I know that works.
That's very clever.
Yeah. Okay, you're going back in the pile for another 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think they're all good things for people who you have to make a commitment with your time.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to study from others, or
yeah,
I make rules, but
yeah,
I think you should study from others, as good a teacher as you can get.
Yeah, as diverse a set of teachers, or do you think it's important for people to study one type of painting versus another for a period of time, like to focus?
I actually think it's good to study with different people.
I agree. Yeah,
yeah, because you're going to get. Everyone has a different take.
Yeah.
And you will be able to see all different facets of your artwork and maybe synthesize, because you want to end up with, your expression.
Yeah.
In the end, you don't want to be like your teacher, even though you love what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do that. We've talked a little bit in previous podcasts. I think it is, at least. I think it's easier to teach a student exactly how you paint versus kind of figuring out what makes them unique as a student and polishing that gem. I think it's a lot harder to do that. So I agree with you completely. Finding what's unique about all of us and not 100% becoming our mentors.
Yeah.
I think I interrupted a chain of thought there.
No, I was finished.
Yeah. So one of my questions had been, who were you before you had this epiphany? But we've covered that because you were doing a whole lot of really interesting things. And then since we know each other, and it's a small little world here in Loudoun County, I heard that you had worked previously in the medium of collage a little bit, that you dabbled in it, and that maybe that helped kind of formulate your principles for art making or your style. Do you think would that be an accurate statement, or?
Well, I just think it's the way I was thinking expressed in a different medium. It didn't really make me paint a certain way. It is more like mosaic a lot, the way I was doing it. I would tear up magazine papers, and what I liked about it was together all those pieces made a picture.
Yeah.
But if you looked close, you're like, oh, there's a hand, there's a clock, there's a
yeah,
that's a cookie. So I think with collage, it had an intellectual involvement level. And I think you can appreciate art with your intellect.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, isn't that clever? Or
Yes.
this is a protest piece, so I agree with the message. Or but you can also react emotionally,
Yeah.
which is the way I react to impressionist work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like my it's almost like your insides flip.
Yeah.
It's so moving.
Is that who you
And
consider your painterly family tree, or the impressionists? Like that's who you admire as far as, or your art making?
that's what made me want to paint.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other ones,
Yeah.
but the impressionists I just totally love. And it was because I connected emotionally. And that's what I concentrate on with my painting.
Mm. That's interesting because intellectually, it seems to me that the mosaic, or the collage kind of mosaic approach has an intellectual systematic way of classifying values, right? And so there's something there. There's some connection there, I think, in terms of your painting, in terms of how you're thinking about things,
Well, what I do a lot of times, I kind of divide it into light and shadow
Yeah.
and like that. But then I'll go, okay, this area that I call, it's all blue and light, let's say.
Yeah.
I'll look at this part and I'll go, but this is a lighter and it's a little more yellow, and this one's got a little more violet. Like every little brush stroke, I'm looking to see how it's different.
Yeah.
And that's also what I did with the pieces of paper.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really excellent point of working within the same different hues, but within the same value, and having them all coalesce together to have that nice pattern. That's really, I think I agree with you. That's a very strong focus of your work. What here, I'm looking at my questions. Can you name a moment that has been transformational in your career? One that's changed your outlook or perhaps your approach to art making?
Well, I remember when I was first starting to paint, one of the teachers that I went to, she painted like a Dutch master.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, you should, even though I knew I wasn't going to paint like that.
Yeah.
I
was
knew
going to
that
say, that's an interesting,
like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, but I shouldn't, like everyone should know how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I signed up, and the first thing is, you have to bring your own still life setup. And I brought an orchid, and I was used to painting alla prima.
Yeah.
Like paint.
Yeah.
And it's done.
Yeah.
For this, you do it over like 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And my orchid was all dead. And, like, oh, I need a whole other strategy if I'm doing this kind of painting. But the way she taught it is she went around, she would come to you and she'd say, okay, mix this and this and put it there. And then she'd leave.
And were you working indirect? So you were working with like a monochromatic underpainting that you were then glazing on top of, like that kind of?
No,
Oh, that's interesting.
We didn't do a grisaille, but
that's so interesting. Yeah.
But I didn't have, the problem for me with that method is I didn't have the big picture. I was like, what am I trying to do here? And how do I know that I mixed that and that and put it there? But anyway, I was just doing it.
Yeah.
So you wait for a while because she's got to make everyone go around, tell them mix, put there, mix, put there.
Right.
So just doing a lot of waiting. And I looked around, I took my paint and I put like a little of the orchid and just slapped it on there like I do. And she came by to mine and she said, I like that right there. The one thing that was me.
Right. Your alla prima approach, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And just the way I put it down, she said that's what she liked the best. And I was like, okay, I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I just need to do, I just need to do what
you regularly do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a turning point. There are a lot of things that you learn along the way.
Yeah. Have you tried any other mediums that you talked about collage, and did you try mosaics at any point? Like, was that anything that interested you?
No, I have. Well, yeah, when I was in my homesteading phase, I made a mosaic stepping stone
Oh,
out of
wow. Okay.
broken
Yeah.
pottery, but
Yeah.
not really. I tried pastels once, not for me.
Yeah.
I did some watercolor, and there's possibility in that, but it's
Mhm.
harder to um, do on the fly.
It's really surprising to me that you said what you're naming, like color. I can't see the color pencil with the style you're working currently. It doesn't seem to me to be like
oh, I didn't
a
do
good
colored
match.
pencil.
Okay. Or
I'd have never done that, but watercolor.
oh, water. Okay.
Watercolor. So the problem with that is that you need to know where you're going to be right from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times when I'm painting, I'll be like, oh, what if I do this? What if I move this? Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be better if it's taller or shorter? I adjusted a lot, and you can't do that in watercolor. Also, I realized that I didn't have time to become an expert in all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, that's it. I'm just going to do oil painting and try to get good at that.
Yeah. 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 Your landscapes are particularly beautiful. Like for me, that's like one of my favorite parts of your work are your landscapes. And I'm wondering, you know, is there anything that you learned from working landscape that has helped you, or what would you advise other artists that aren't getting out there, that aren't doing plein air? Do you feel like it's a big driver in your work, or?
Well, I think it's a good practice. I find that when I'm painting plein air, I actually probably concentrate on being more exact, more literal, than I am when I'm in the studio. But you need to know what it literally is before you can make it your version of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really good practice to understand the color of the light and all the atmosphere.
Yes. And
atmosphere.
Do you consider yourself more of a studio painter than a plein air painter? Like your plein air work, are they references for the studio paintings? Or are you one of these painters that does the plein air competitions and then, like you can't touch them right afterwards? Like you have to do it 100% there.
I do not do plein air competitions because, I used to love being a graphic designer, and I used to love my work, but it got ruined. And so I had to reinvent myself, and I now guard my happiness with painting because I want to just keep doing this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
The stress of a competition where you have to get up early, you have to race around, get the best spot, and you have to, it has to be a masterpiece, and you need a lot of them, and you got to hang them and try to be judged. And I find it stressful.
Yeah.
I'd rather just paint, and if it turns out, it's fine. If it doesn't turn out, that's fine too. Just it's not my thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think there's a lot of us that can relate to that. A lot of former burnt out, graphic designers. I only dipped my foot into that field for a little bit, 6 years, which was long enough.
You mean plein air?
No, graphic design.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because my master's degree is actually in exhibit design, and so I was working as an exhibit designer for 6 years. But it was really glorified graphic designer, and I had some pretty intense deadline. So I hear you about guarding your painting time, about wanting to make the most of that.
Guarding your happiness.
That's profound. Yeah. So what does that mean? I'm going to push you a little bit.
What does guarding your happiness mean?
Yes. So how can we do that?
Well, just like what I was saying is I felt that doing plein air competitions made me stressed, made me anxious. And I don't even believe in competitive painting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like if you go in a garden and you say, oh, the rose is the prettiest, the best flower ever. And all these peonies and daffodils and lilacs, they can all just go because they're second rate.
Right.
But then everybody will try to just grow roses.
Yeah.
if that's the truth, because we all want to be the best. And I really think that we should be an expression of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and add to the diversity of what's out there, and be unique.
Yes. Yes.
So
So
the idea
it's about knowing oneself, right? And knowing what makes you happy and listening to that. See, that's one thing I'm really interested in is intuition and listening to your voice,
yeah,
not being worried about, what other people expect of you or what other people think of you. Cause honestly, people misjudge you all the time, right? So you're really the person who knows, right? What your path is supposed to be. So that really resonates for me. So I wonder, we're kind of transitioning a little bit here into some business and maybe some New Year's plans, because that was one of the things that we had talked about. We had hoped for this podcast is to kind of give people some goals for the new year as far as art business. But I think it's helpful to kind of set parameters, as far as like, what you won't allow to come into your work day or your studio space, as far as like, like, I don't know about you, but do you have your phone off when you're working? Like, that kind of thing. Do you have your messages off so that you're not distracted, so, um, are there any things that you do that, like, any parameters that you set in place to kind of protect this studio time of yours? I mean, things are a little different for you because now your children are grown, right? And they're out of the house. And so it's not like when you were painting when you were younger, where you may have had to kind of also have a kid on your hip, like that kind of thing, but
well, I do actually have more demands on my time that I want. I want these demands. I came here for them because I live in the same town as both of our sons, and they're married with 2 children each, and they're so we got 2 3-year-olds and 2 1-year-olds, and so I go over there and I babysit, and I
okay,
play
so
with
you are
them.
doing childcare duty as well. Yeah.
Well, not occasionally babysitting.
Yeah.
Not childcare though.
Yeah.
But that's because I deem that important.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with spending my time that way, but you got to pay attention to where your time goes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your business savvy, as I've been kind of talking or alluding to earlier. I consider you one of the most savvy businesswomen that I know. You helped me personally, which I'm really grateful for, with my own website and how I could make that work better. Make sales through it. Because as we know, we're living in a different age where you can work with galleries if you want to, but you can also sell directly, for yourself. And I just thought you had just you did a presentation that I was part of, or that I saw, and I was just so impressed with it that, I was blown away. And I was like, oh, I have to talk to Trisha about, like, things that I could be implementing in my work. And then I thought this would be a great conversation that we could have for people for the new year, for people looking towards 2023 and their New Year's goals. What, in your opinion, what do you think artists should be doing kind of right now to help improve their business acumen, or at the very least kind of get, start helping them in terms of making a living?
Well, thank you. That was a lot there.
Right. I do that.
So I want to give the overview. What I think how it works. Okay. You need 3 things. You need artwork that people want. You need to get it in front of the people who want it. And you need to make it easy for them to buy. And it's like a 3-legged stool. So if you don't have one of those things, it just topples over and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, what I find interesting, people, maybe like, no one's buying my art. It must not be any good. And that actually isn't, that isn't what's wrong. Their art is actually really beautiful and great, but they're not getting it out there, or their website doesn't have e-commerce on it. So it's difficult. They have to send an email, and they have to wait for the answer to the email, and then they have to ask how they should pay, and too many steps.
Right.
Too many steps.
Yeah.
And so the way that that I personally discovered how important e-commerce was is a few years back. I was with galleries then, and one of the galleries required that I couldn't have any prices on any of my art, and nowhere to be found on the, not in a blog post, nowhere. So I did that because this was a really prestigious place. At least I felt that way.
Right.
And but then they lost their lease. The rent went up too much, and they just said, we're not going to do it. And so, oh, well, I think I'll just go in and put prices on things.
And when was this, Trisha? What year was this?
Probably like 2018 or 2017.
Okay.
Right. And at the end of the year, I mean, I didn't really notice it going on during the year, but at the end of the year, I made $29,000 more.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like,
more.
Well, I didn't work harder. I'm already working hard. So that was the same. What happened? And I went back through and I was like, oh, it's because people who came to my website could just throw it in their cart and buy it. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I guess we could drill down on these three components.
I think we need to, because I would imagine you also had a robust newsletter at this time too. Mm-hmm. And that helped you, right? Did that enable that?
Yeah. The newsletter is part of the audience, and your website is the make it easy to buy.
Yeah.
And then, we all have to try to get something that people want. That's the hardest part for me to tell you what your authentic expression would be.
Right. Yeah.
But the easiest thing to get right is the website. So, like I said, you have to have commerce on there, and a lot of people still today are saying email me or click here to go to another website where they're for sale, stuff like that. No.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll just mention while you're on that is, you want to answer all their questions. When they come and they see the artwork, they have some questions. They're like, well, I wonder if this is framed. Tell them. Show them a picture. This is what it looks like. Well, I wonder how big it is in that frame. Tell them what the size of it is when it's in the frame. Tell them why you paint, put a couple sentences or however long you're comfortable doing, but explain to them what this is and why you painted it. And then they'll be able to connect with it better.
Yeah. Do you do videos? Do you have videos up for each painting? Do you go through all that?
No.
I know some people do. I'd like to get better at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that probably is better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable, like you're very comfortable with videos and reels and all that stuff.
Working on it. There are some that are much more comfortable than me, but I think it's a skill. I think it's an important skill now, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the only way to get better is to just do it.
Just do it.
And
exactly.
Not worry that your first one's clumsy or,
right.
Yeah.
I'm forever.
Yeah.
I'm forever Googling things on YouTube. How do I do this? How do I do that? Thank God for YouTube. I mean, what would we do without YouTube? Because it's really, you don't need a whole other diploma in whatever you're doing. You just kind of jump in and learn.
Yeah, that's how I learned iMovie.
Mm-hmm.
Is I just went on there and I was like, how do I do picture in picture?
Yeah.
Oh, how do I make this?
Yeah.
And it's perfect.
Yeah.
So skipping over to the audience portion of it, getting it in front of people who like your art. Your farm where you're finding these people is going to be social media. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the reason why this is the best time in the world ever, history, to be an artist, is because you can connect with these people and it's free.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It used to be we had to go through a gallery and they took 50%. So that is definitely not free.
Yeah.
that's pretty steep.
Yeah.
Or, you could advertise in a magazine and you pay $700 for a quarter page, or, that's not free.
Yeah.
So now we've got, I suggest Instagram and Facebook, and you can make, if you start on Instagram, it cross post to Facebook.
Right.
So that's really, really easy.
Right.
If you're, like, I know my collectors, they're older, so they're not on TikTok. I don't
Right.
really need to do TikTok.
Yeah.
But if you make funny dog caricatures or something, maybe you would be you go gangbusters on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, so you put it out there on these two places, and one of the things that I'm doing, all this changes. I did the talk on this like a year ago, and it's like already different from when I said that. But
yeah,
you can make a product on your business Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone wants to buy it, they can click on it and it'll take them over to your website.
Yeah.
Where it's for sale.
Yes. Yes.
So I go ahead and set that up. And then when I post on Instagram, it's for sale. Like there's a product button.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. And I say in the description.
Wait a minute. So you're posting on Facebook primarily, and then it automatically puts it on Instagram because you have them connected, and then that's where the link is?
No, I create the product first.
Right.
So that I can tag the product.
Oh,
but I don't make a post yet.
Okay.
I post over on Instagram.
Okay, that's what I do. I post first on Instagram and then it proliferates on my Facebook. So that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if you were starting with Facebook and then proliferating on Instagram.
I go to Facebook first just to make this,
just to make the item, right?
Little back end part.
Right. Okay.
So then when I post it, because I have a business account on Instagram, I can tag the product, and then underneath my post it says view shop, and I say in the description, hey, this one's for sale. Click that view shop.
Oh, that's so bright.
Click on that, and and if they keep, they'll end up on my website, and I do get clickovers from that.
That's brilliant, Trisha. Just that right there. Worth the price of admission, everybody. Which is free.
When it cross posts over on Facebook, that same button is on that image over there, and they can do the same thing on Facebook.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I didn't realize that. That's fantastic. Yeah. I did, after you mentioned it to me, I did put a couple things in my shop on Facebook, and I've neglected that garden. So I need to go back and prune a little bit, but that's great. That's very exciting. So thank you for that. That's really inspiring.
And I, on Facebook, they also give you some analytics on your audience.
Yeah.
And the audience, they're two different groups. They're not
totally
the same people following me in both places. There's like the tiniest bit of overlap, and otherwise they're totally different. So anyway,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but do you find that the timing, how there was a point where Instagram was like, you have to post right when your audience is peaking. And for me, it's the same thing all the time now. I've pretty much just, I guess maybe I have more followers in different time zones. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem to make much of a difference in terms of my time. Is that something that you're conscious of for you? Like, is that part of your strategy?
Well, I'm usually up really late, like 1 or 2. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I do that a lot. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, this is all ready, but I won't post it in the middle of the night, because then nobody will see it, and it'll be gone by the time they wake up. So I just leave it all ready and do it in the morning.
Yeah.
But you do, okay. So cultivating your audience, you do want to respond to their comments, because these people want to connect with you. They like your artwork. That makes them think they're probably going to like you too.
Yeah.
And so you have to set aside just, like at least 20 minutes after you post so that you can respond to people, because there's like a test period where, Instagram doesn't send out your post to every single follower you have. They do, like, let's say, okay, let's send out 100 of them. And if those people go, oh, like, comment, save, blah, 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 or even dwell on it, spend time on that, they go, oh, this is a good one. And then they send it out more.
Trisha, I
And if
never heard of this before. This is like brand new information for me. Oh my goodness. Wow.
and so then if it keeps, like they send it out to a larger portion of your own audience, and if that goes well, then they'll put it over on Explore,
Yes.
so that new people will see it. And so that's why engagement, even your own engagement, is propelling that. So you got to just be there for the first 20 minutes or so.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's excellent advice. That's so good. Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm definitely going to be implementing that. That's great. Is there anything else that you can think about in terms of Instagram or okay, you got plenty. I'll let you go.
Well, no, I just wanted to say that
keep adding, please.
That I'll just jump over to this part. Your collectors are your gold. They are the most important people who've already bought, like, because they've drunk your Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
They've bought in, and they
like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll follow them. I said, oh, well, I'm going to follow these people because they've bought my stuff, and I'm going to comment on their things, and I'm going to keep in touch.
Yes.
I mean, that seems obvious, but
no, but a lot of people don't do that. That's that's wonderful on a human level, I mean, it really is like such a simple, would seem like a simple thing, but I guess it's the equivalent of like sending somebody, a collector, a birthday card on their birthday, like, just keeping in touch with them and congratulations on that baby and that kind of stuff,
Yes. So like, just brainstorm moment. How can you show your collectors that you appreciate them? Well, like an easy one that doesn't cost it costs 50 cents or maybe $1.50. You send them a thank you card. That's an easy way to keep in touch. And the other thing, well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Do you mail that after you ship them the painting, for instance, or would you include it in the painting? Because that's usually what I do, but I'm wondering if I
include one when I ship it, and then I do sell artwork at Art at the Mill, and they give me the buyers' names, and so I send them a card.
Yeah.
And then I used to do it around the holidays, but now this year did it at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I do too. A card. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thankful for you. This is the card that I made, and in there it says, I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, I do something similar, and mine has a pumpkin on it, so I know I know exactly what you're talking about. And then
for this I usually try to send them something. This is a tea towel that I had made at Spoonflower.
Oh, wow.
And so then, it matches the thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, wow.
It shocks them.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
All right, so
brilliant, Trisha.
The other thing is you want to keep yourself, you want to sort of like keep your name in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the more important than Facebook and all that is to have your own newsletter, and all your collectors should be on your newsletter.
Yeah. And how do you add to that newsletter? Because like, how do you grow it, I guess?
Well, I encourage people to get, like, if they're serious about getting some of my art, or if they want to take a class with me, because I don't really post that on the social media usually. I think I might have lately, but anyway, I encourage them to get on the newsletter, and a lot of times, they just do it.
Yeah.
And I have an autoresponder on mine that says, hey, if you have a minute, tell me how you found me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And a lot of them will write back, and they'll say, oh, I found you on Pinterest, or I stalk you on blah, blah, blah.
Okay. You just said something, Pinterest. How much time are you spending on Pinterest? Because I think that's something barely anything. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing. So what I do when I put it on my website, I just go ahead and pin it to, I have a board, like an official, like this is my artwork board, and I just pin it there. And a lot of people do come from, I guess maybe half of the newsletter, well, half the traffic on my website is from Pinterest.
Oh, wow. That's significant, Trisha.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. What's interesting about Pinterest is that you pin something and then like 6 months later, people are still looking at it, which is kind of the opposite of the rest of social media, because social media changes so quickly, right? That you post something and it's gone tomorrow. So to have a pin that you've put on still working for you 6 months later is amazing, So I think it's something artists need to take more advantage of, for sure.
Well, and that doesn't, you don't have to write anything, or you don't have to respond to comments. People are just, I like that, and they save it, and sometimes they click over, and they will join the newsletter. I don't know how I guess there's some official way of saying, like, they're like lukewarm at that point. Like, they know they like you enough to get on your newsletter, but the idea is that you keep sending them newsletters, and after time they feel like they know you, and they see a piece, because I always put up new art in there, they see something like, and then they can end up buying.
Yeah.
I did lose my where I was going with that.
Well, we started talking about the newsletter, and that's when I just distracted you with Pinterest, because the newsletter, I mean, these are all like they're all different buckets that we have to kind of pay attention to, right? And they all feed each other, right? So the newsletter obviously feeds your online sales. You need that website, you need that commerce space on your website in order to get your online sales. But in order to drive the traffic to it, you really need your own newsletter to get the traffic going into people, to keep the traffic, right? Because algorithms change, right? Yes. So like and as we know, right? Like Instagram's constantly changing, and they want to be the new TikTok, so they're doing things differently. And then you lose all those eyeballs. And if you don't keep them, right, going to your own website, you're just losing all of that potential income, or potential followers.
Right. Well, you hit the nail right on the head. Your newsletter is the vehicle that you control.
Yeah.
You control the timing. You do when it goes in their inbox, there's a really high chance that they're gonna see it. They're gonna open it. So that is your property. Whereas the other things can change, and like, what if you were depending on Twitter to make your living?
Right.
You'd be crying right now.
Right.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, so you have to send out your newsletter at least once a month.
Yeah. Because you mentioned it to me. It's like a warm handshake, and I love that that thought. Of keeping that relationship going. It's really I mean, everything is all about relationships in life, right? And this is definitely one of those areas.
And the problem, if you let it slide, is that they'll forget that they signed up for it.
Yeah.
And then they'll mark you spam. That's no good.
Yeah.
So you just want to keep in touch with them, and you don't want to write it like a business, because they're not trying to have a relationship with a business. They want you write it more like you're speaking to a friend.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
yeah.
When I read that on a FASO thing, that's where my website is.
Yeah.
Fine Arts Studio Online.
Yeah.
And they said, write it as if it's from a friend. And I changed in my newsletter, because I used to have my logo at the top and blah, blah. And I just got rid of that, and made it more like a personal correspondence.
Yeah. Yeah. And then did it take time to grow that newsletter? Because I mean, I feel like my newsletter has grown a little bit, but it's kind of been stuck around the same numbers for a little bit. Like, what would you advise that as far as growing it? Sign up for my newsletter, people.
Well, all right. The sign up should be, I know you're already doing this, but it should be easy and obvious, and it should be on every page of your website, because it should be front and center. And you try to have some benefit to the newsletter that they would not get on these other platforms. Like, occasionally some people will say, okay, I'm going to have an insider subscriber, sale, or, you come up
Yeah.
with something special
Yeah.
that is a benefit for them getting on the newsletter. But you know what? If they don't want to be on the newsletter, then there's no point in making them,
Yeah.
right?
I find some
They
people
have
are
to
just
want
really
it.
anti-email. I mean, I know myself. I really struggled with the newsletter concept for a long time. I had girlfriends that were trying to get me to do it, and I just like
Uh-huh.
would not do it. And then finally, after talking to you, you were probably the person that made me rethink that, because literally hate email. Hate email. I probably have like
Really?
yeah, I probably have like 12,000 emails in my in my Yahoo account, because I have a business account, and then I have like my regular email account.
Mm-hmm.
12,000 unanswered emails, so they just pile up. And so like the thought, I felt like if I asked people to sign up for a newsletter, I'm asking them to, for yet another email that maybe they don't want. Like that was my mindset before I
Mm-hmm.
started doing it myself. And your humanistic view of this, of like, no, you're really, what you're doing is keeping in contact. You're keeping in contact
Mm-hmm.
with your collectors and people that have already shown interest in you, that that like what you do, that want to support you, and they want to hear from you. They want to know you on a
Mm-hmm.
more personal level. And I think that I mean, that totally changed my thinking about it. And so I do that now. I have my newsletter, once a month.
Good.
Yeah. And I try not to do too many of them, because I still have that idea of email. I still want to be, respectful of people's inboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's too much of a personal hang up, but
Well, I don't think people feel that way on Instagram. Nobody
yeah.
says, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting too many posts from
Oh,
this." I mean, maybe someone does.
that's really, yeah. Wow. Yes, you're right. You're right. That's really,
And you and I are different. I prefer email,
that's so
and you
interesting. Yeah.
prefer
I prefer social media
text.
and text, and yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Um,
interesting. Are you organized with your email? Like, do you
what do you
sit
mean?
there and like delete like, 100 emails a day? Like, how do you stay on top of it?
Well, I unsubscribe from things that I don't like.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm ruthless about that.
Yeah.
Um, so the things that I get are just the things that I need. I do not delete hardly. Like sometimes somebody will write me and I'll be like, I think I've talked to this person before. And I'll search and it'll be like, something
5 years
from like,
ago.
exactly. And
Oh,
I'll
that's great.
go, yeah, this
Yeah.
is what we talked about back then.
Yeah. So maybe I'm
Um,
overthinking it.
well, so what I found was, okay, when I first started my newsletter, I felt like everyone else, like I think I'm just whistling in some dark alley or something. There's nobody here.
Yeah.
But I just looked at it more like I I'm going to just summarize what I've accomplished this month. And it's, I enjoyed doing that because usually I'm sitting there going, I didn't do anything. And then I start making the newsletter. I was like, oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yay. you know?
Yeah.
Um, but then what happens is eventually it's just growing little bit at a time. And then at some point you go, hey, every time I send out my newsletter, I make money.
Yeah.
Huh. And then you don't mind sending out your newsletter anymore.
Yeah. What do you think about so I think as artists we tend to have two different types of audiences, right? Like we have the collector audience, who may or may not also be an artist, right? And then
Yeah.
there's the artist audience that are following you because they're interested in your work and they're interested in learning from you, learning
Mm-hmm.
more techniques, etc. Do you marry those two audiences? Like, how do you, because sometimes they can be like, I would think like a pure collector that maybe is not a painter might not necessarily be interested in hearing how you, how you varnish that painting or how you do this or how you do that, which your artist audience would really, really love. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would like, this is not how it works on my newsletter sign up, but I would like for them to be able to segment themselves,
Yeah.
meaning say, um, I want to hear about new artwork,
Yeah.
click. I want to hear about workshops, click, like so they could choose what they're going to get.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just somebody signed up,
Yeah.
and so they're just going to get what they get. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way, because that's a lot of work to do all those different silos, of audiences. I think, it's kind of
Yeah.
makes it more, for me, a little bit more intimidating. Like I have to write a newsletter just for a collector, and then I have to write a newsletter just for my artist fan base, and it
Well,
simplifies it.
you would need to decide. Like I like to paint paintings. That's, I like to teach, but I love to paint paintings. So that's my focus, is like I want to make some artwork and get it in front of people who want some artwork.
Yes.
So I kind of focus on that, but the artists don't mind seeing artwork, so it works.
Yeah.
And so I'll just point out some simple things, like when you put the image in your email, don't be afraid to say that it's for sale.
Yeah.
And make sure that when people click on it, it goes to your website where they can buy it.
Right.
Like, that sounds obvious, but
right. Make it easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it easy,
And don't be shy. They know that some of your artwork is for sale.
Yeah. And that all your images should be clickable links, really, because some people are just used to clicking on images as opposed to click here. Having both of those, right? Because there are some people that maybe are from a slightly older generation that might only know to click if it says click here, So
right.
I find it's helpful to do both those strategies,
Yeah, so, I do that too.
Yeah, like you do.
Instagram, I'll say, do you see that white dot there? If you click that,
yeah,
I explain the whole thing to them. Or like when there's multiple pictures, a lot of people don't know that you can swipe and see more images.
And that helps with the engagement too, right? Doesn't that help with the algorithm, having multiple images? I mean, for social media, for Instagram?
That I don't know.
That I have heard, yeah.
I do know that they say you should write a long caption, because if they read the whole thing, that means they dwelled on it. They're measuring how long someone looks at this.
So crazy. Yeah.
Even if they don't comment, or if they don't like, or if they don't save it, if they read your whole caption, that counts.
That's crazy. That's crazy how much they're following, like Instagram and, all these companies, how much they're analyzing down to that minutia.
So I guess if I were saying what people should do in 2023.
Yeah.
If they don't have e-commerce on their website, they should do that first.
Yeah. Yes.
And make sure
what did you look at when you were doing your e-commerce? So you're with Faso, but what have you tried? Like I'm with Squarespace. There's so many different companies out there.
Originally I had made a free website. It was like a blog, I guess, on WordPress, but you could have static pages. So I just made it into a website that way.
Yeah, mine was like that too.
And I went to an art jam. It was called it. So like it was a fun little party thing where you had like tape on the back, and you said one thing that you would like and one thing that you could offer. And it's like a mixer thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And this one artist said that she would she'd give you like a critique of your business or your art career or whatever. And so but she was looking for models. And I said, well, I'm not model material, but my niece is really cute and I'll pay her to be your model. So we made this trade.
Yeah.
And she hated what I was doing with my website.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was like, why are you mentioning these galleries? They have their own website. This is yours. It should be about you.
Yeah.
Very good advice.
Very good advice. Yeah.
Thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And then, so anyway, she was like, you need a portfolio more, So anyway, I decided, because I was very frugal, And the thing that I had was free. And I decided, well, I'm going to look into it. And I guess I don't know how I came across FASO, but at the time, it was, I knew that like all the big names were on there,
Yeah.
Susan Lyons and
Yeah.
Mark Legueux, like anybody I liked. They
Right.
were
Right.
already using that. And my husband just said, if it's good enough for them, you want to be in their company.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
So,
that's great advice. Yeah.
and it's very affordable. The level that I'm on is $30 a month, and or cheaper by the year.
Yeah.
And it has so much stuff that makes your life easy.
Yeah.
Like when you upload art, it goes out. They have a daily art stream. It goes
Yeah.
out. I get traffic from that daily
Wow.
art stream.
Right. And you're not actually doing the coding or anything like that. Like it's a full service website, right?
Yeah, it's a template thing.
Yeah.
Some like now that I've been doing it, I think it's very easy. But
Yeah.
when I was setting it up, I did ask tech support some questions. I want to have a graphic instead of just the words for my logo or whatever. And it's the best tech support in the industry and in most industries. It's got real people
Yeah.
who speak English,
Yeah.
and who've been there for like the whole time that I've been there.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I know them.
Right. Right.
So anyway, that's why I picked it. It's very reasonable. It's built for artists. It's not like like Shopify or some of these other things that are meant for commerce, but not necessarily for artists.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of built-in stuff for it.
Yeah.
All right. So get a website.
Right. Okay, people.
If
Get
you
your
don't have
note
a
out.
website,
Yeah.
get one. Make sure people can buy from it. To answer all their questions on the page, put a picture of yourself on there and tell them who you are, because that gives them a warm feeling about buying from you as well. Okay. Then I would make a commitment to myself to do a newsletter every single month, no matter what.
Yeah.
I give it a whole year.
Yeah.
And make sure that the people who have bought from you, make sure they're on there. Make a mailing list, like for snail mail.
Right. Right.
Put them on this mailing list, and then mail to them at least once a year.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Oh, mail to them. That's an important part. Mail to your newsletter people, your email list. Yeah.
Because there are some people like you that don't want to.
Yeah.
That don't want to have another email.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is like something that people don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Like send a card that they've signed their actual name on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one way to, they feel
a
little bit like that you care about them.
Mm-hmm. Differentiate. Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably and of course, try to always get better with your art. So what I used to do is pick an area, something I was going to concentrate on. Like, I'm going to learn how color works. I'm going to just study this, and I would go get books on that. Like I would just focus in on one thing, but it could be any other kind of goals. But try to get better, because that always helps.
Yeah, but that never ends. That's a lifelong pursuit. Like that's how I feel. And
I'm still not
yes,
there.
we're all still, but I think we're all like that. Like I honestly feel like we're all on the same artistic path. We're just at different mile markers, and that's the way that I look at it. It never ends. It's just like, it's a lifelong thing. So that's great. So we've talked about the website. They have to get a commerce website. They have to get a newsletter. They have to, ideally send it out, ideally mail, like physically mail a card, a thank you card. Such a novel idea. My mother-in-law would be rolling in her grave because she was very good about sending thank you notes, but nowadays people don't. So that definitely does separate you. And then the Pinterest, the Facebook, you mentioned having the shop there, making sure that you put items. If you have a business Facebook page, make sure you have your items there, and then you also pin it on Pinterest. Is there something else? You're talking about the tripod. What was the other? Like there may be.
Have art that people want,
Yeah.
put it in front of the people who want it, make it easy for them to buy.
Perfect. Oh, that's perfect. I think we could end it right there. That's the best ending for any podcast. So thank you so much, Trisha. This has been fantastic. I really think it's going to inspire a lot of creatives to kind of move forward in their goals. And I really appreciate you and your time. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's been great.
It's been fantastic. Thank you, Trisha.